Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on international healthcare recruitment, workforce strategies, and legal insights. I'm joined today by my esteemed colleagues, Derek and Joni, but first I'd like to introduce myself. As the front slide says, you can start with downloading our employer's guide to sponsoring foreign workers. So you can click on the QR code or click on the link. And I'd just like to acknowledge, providing acknowledgement of country as well. So we acknowledge and pay respect to the past, present, and emerging traditional custodians and elders of this nation. My name is Yin. I'm the practice leader in the corporate immigration team at LegalVision. And we have today Derek Irwin, the Managing Director of Global Professional Recruitment. Derek has 25 years of experience in workforce planning and strategy within the healthcare sector. And Joni Davies, who's the Talent Acquisition and Recruitment Manager for Warrigal. Warrigal is a not-for-profit aged care organisation. Welcome today, guys. We're so excited and pleased to have you here attend the webinar today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Yin.
Before we begin, I just want to confirm that this webinar is recorded. So if you're not able to attend today, but you did register, you will receive a copy of the recording that you can watch later. Don't forget to submit your questions and answers, and we will attend to them towards the end of the webinar. And don't forget to complete our feedback survey after you view the webinar. So within the next 48 hours of this webinar, you will be eligible for a free consultation. So if you're interested in that, please make a note of it in the survey at the end of the webinar. So before we get started, we do have a poll question that we've posed to you. It will be sent to you and you can then answer it. It's, are you planning to recruit international staff for your business? And there's a multiple choice question. So if you could provide your answers, we'll come back to the poll question at the end of the webinar to see what your answers are. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and obviously welcome again Derek and Joni. And we'll obviously get started with some of the Q&A's panel discussion. Joni, how are you today?
Very well, Yin. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. We're so pleased to have you here and for you to share your experience about Warrigal's journey in recruiting internationally qualified nurses. And I'd like to start with just asking, why did you decide to choose that pathway, recruiting internationally qualified nurses? Maybe talk us through your journey.
Sure. Okay. So now, Derek, you and I spoke at length about the scale of workforce shortages many times. Warrigal, we spoke about Warrigal run strategic ad campaigns. We supported and still do support multiple internal programs, like our growing graduate pathway. But it just all in all was not, local talent was not able to meet the demand, especially attracting and retaining our registered nurses in more regional locations. So that being said, probably might, like many providers that you've spoken to, Derek, in aged care, well, it's definitely a workforce shortage, and we needed a solution that would cover off, so stabilising our rosters, improve our continuity of care for our residents, which is very, very important, and reduce our reliance on agency staff. And this is where international recruitment has become a part of our strategic workforce solution. So, and it directly aligns with our 2030 strategic plan, and we're committed to growing our own talent and creating a diverse, engaged and future-ready workforce. So But from your side, Derek, what shifts have you seen in healthcare or aged care providers in the last 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, that's a great question. In terms of what's been changing more recently over the past 2 years has been obviously the new Aged Care Act that's coming into play, the mandatory care minutes that everybody will need to have. But it's more than just the numbers of hours of care. It's about the competency levels of these nurses. One of the things that I've noticed in the marketplace, and it's no fault of people, they've gone in search of international nurses, in some cases CAP students, who don't have the scope and experience in aged care. They're fantastic nurses in renal, they're fantastic nurses in ICU. They're not equipped to go to regional Australia and work in an aged care facility where it's a significant responsibility and it's a totally different scope of practice. So yes, we've had that. We've had the star rating system, which we won't talk about today, but because it's not related to care minutes, but it's also part of the bigger picture. So in terms of the shortage, there's a shortage, but there's a shortage of competency levels as well. And that's one of the things that Warrigal looked at very seriously when they embarked on this project.
And Derek, this is not this is a universal issue with predominantly a lot of aged care providers in regional areas. Is that what you're discovering with some of the other organizations that you've worked with as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a global challenge, but when we talk about Australia, because Australia is a large country with a smaller population, if you look at the size of it, and in regional locations, one has to be very well equipped because you don't have the resources of the metro situation, city location, where you have colleagues that can help you out. You might find yourself working a shift with another nurse where you've got to make clinical decisions. Obviously, you work within your scope of practice, but you need to be experienced. There's nothing worse than sending an inexperienced nurse with a fantastic attitude that doesn't have the background in aged care to a regional location, because what happens, their morale gets destroyed. And it's not their fault. It's not, and there is a huge requirement in regional. So I understand why this can happen, but we have to try not let that happen, because that doesn't work really. And I know from speaking to clients that have made that error and will not make it again. One has to concentrate on the level of the nurse going to the region so that he or she can cope with the challenges.
And Joni, just going back to you, obviously you shared a lot about Warrigal's workforce program and planning, the dire circumstances with the critical shortages, and that's obviously been confirmed by Derek. Then having determined this is probably the best solution and strategy for the business is to explore internationally qualified nurses. How did you then get started with GPR? And how did that sort of eventuate into this working relationship that has been so successful?
Wow, where do I begin with the story with Derek? So our pivot began in around 2023. So our RN vacancies were increasing, which was direct correlation with the increase of care minute compliance. So we knew we were starting to head down the wrong track. Agency was increasing. So we built a business case with 2 key drivers to point out that it was financially, it wasn't sustainable to keep going the direction we were with the agency RN usage, particularly in our regional areas. And it was having a deeper impact. And this is through no fault of the agency RNs. They definitely, have their place, but it was impacting the care quality because the continuity of care wasn't there. The staff morale was coming down, and just the overall long-term financial sustainability, you're talking six odd figures. I'll leave it there. So we got on and partnered with GPR. Of course, we did our due diligence, and I won't go into that. Partnered with GPR to source high quality APRA registered international nurses that were visa ready and had aged care experience that would be transferable over to Australia. So it's now sort of formed part of a multi-pronged recruitment strategy. So it works very well alongside our already existing programs, which I touched on before. We've got, casual to perm pathways, and we've also kicked off a longer term IQN pathway, which I won't go into detail on. And then, of course, we have done a lot of work around our EVP and our diversity and inclusion strategy to sort of up the attraction levels. Yeah, I could talk more about the relationship with Derek. It's been a ride, but I'll throw it back over to you if you've got anything to add, Derek.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most important things is having commitment from the top. And that's one of the things, Joni, that you went to find, and you got it. You got the commitment from the top. Because if the executive team don't support it, it's not going to happen. And I'm sure they were nervous when they signed off on it, and you were nervous when you signed off on it. But the overall strategy, it's much more than just an international strategy. You also have your local strategy as well, and you have your RN development program that we won't go into today, but you have that. So it's a trifactor strategy that Warrigal have. So having that commitment from the top senior executives was critical, because then we could go and execute. So when we did start, like every organization that worked together, you got to find out the requirements of the client. So that would have taken a small bit of time, thankfully, because we had a good working relationship, and we were quite transparent in our feedback. So that really worked, and that sped up the process as we move forward to then. And then one has to take the care and the planning out to make sure that interviews are being attended by the management team, because the local managers put a lot of commitment into the interviewing process as well from Warrigal. I mean, I have in the past encountered clients that allow a non-clinical person to do the interview and then record the interview in a video and then play it back to the care manager. I don't think that works effectively. I think it's better to have those care managers and those people that they're going to be working with in the interviews. And I think that's where Warrigal really excelled internally as a team to support it.
That's really great points, Derek. And I was obviously surprised, but not surprised about Joni's identification of the cost that was involved in agency recruitment or agency assistance. And obviously for those in attendance here, this is obviously where they're placed within your business, but they're often not a permanent roster or permanent staff. So obviously partnering with a recruitment organization that understands also the employer-sponsored and visa process would be incredibly cost effective. I guess the next question I wanted to ask is, what were the challenges and risks in the immigration and recruitment process?
So from Warrigal's point of view, our main concerns going in one of them was, would we be able to attract the right level of clinically experienced RNs that had aged care experience, knowledge relevant and transferable to Australia? I sort of touched on that before, and obviously with our support, there's still the concern around would they adapt and integrate into our culture and communities long term, because obviously this is an investment too. So we need to make sure that we have everything in place to support them long term. So those were definitely a few of the main concerns going in. We were lucky. And we partnered with GPR, so they provided the the candidates were visa ready, pre-screened. So the caliber of candidates that came through, we were able to have alignment meetings very early on, Derek, and that's something that I appreciate about our working partnership, is that we're able to be completely 100% honest and transparent, and we got down to the requirements straight away, and Derek and his team definitely delivered the caliber that we needed. And then obviously we invested in the structured onboarding to help settle our nurses in when they arrived. So cultural awareness training, with clinical educators, mentors, providing, specialised education programs. And then obviously our onboarding trainers providing that comprehensive onboarding and, introduction to Warrigal when they arrive. So, but one point I do want to mention here is, is the welcome experience. So that the partnering with the welcome experience, particularly at their pilot site in Goulburn, has been absolutely beneficial. And big shout out. It's been invaluable to partner with them, and it's ongoing.
Thanks, Joni. That's fantastic. And what about you, Derek? What are your thoughts about what the challenges and risks are from a recruitment and then an immigration perspective? Because you do have a lot of background and knowledge around the immigration process, which is why you're able to identify these highly qualified, high caliber candidates that are visa ready.
Well, I think, first of all, the Department of Immigration and Citizenship gets a lot of noise against them. And one thing that they have done well is they've identified the key skills that we require in Australia. And they've been working hard to get through the numbers, because they have quite a lot of numbers that they're processing at the moment. So just to, sometimes they get a lot of heat, but I just wanted to give them a say that, thank you for that. And thank you for identifying healthcare as an area that requires our end. In terms of the overall picture, once you get involved in the agency model, you can become totally what's the word I'm looking for, dependent on it, and it's easy to stay with it, but the problem is it's expensive. And the point that Joni made about this not having the continuity of care, so it's a different person each week, each day. And in aged care, where the client, the resident, the individual, as the new aged care bill has described them, and rightly so, these individuals require the same person to be looking after them, and not chopping and changing. And when their sons and daughters go to visit them, they love to see the same person that's there all the time, because they build a relationship with the registered nurse or with the care worker, because that's not only that's their home. So it's important to have the continuity of care, and that's what the permanent international recruitment solution provides. But there's an investment in there, so it's very easy to sit on your hands and stay with the current situation and just live with the cost, but it's not sustainable long term. But not only is it not sustainable cost-wise, it's not sustainable human-wise, because you need that continuity of care for these people. They're called the elderly and so on, but they're the ex-police officers, they're the ex-lawyers, they're the ex-teachers, they're the ex-nurses of this country, and we need to look after them.
Derek, yeah, that's really important points, absolutely, because at the end of the day, it's about those patients, clients in the aged care facility, and how does businesses like Warrigal service them appropriately. And one of the key factors is this quality, high caliber nursing support. Absolutely. And so, Joni, having then gone through the immigration process, so having these candidates visa ready, and then being informed about all the different types of employer-sponsored visas, such as subclass 482, 407, 186, do you believe that visa program adequately addresses the business's workforce challenges, and businesses like yours? Like Warrigal?
Very, very interesting question there, Yin. And I do actually feel you can probably answer this in a little bit more detail than me, but the 482, which is the option that we use, the 482 with the pathway to 186, and now the new skills and demand visa that's replaced it, it is a valuable pathway for filling care, aged care workforce gaps, especially for our registered nurses. So for us, it's helped us bring in qualified staff when local recruitment alone, wasn't enough, as I've mentioned before. So, and the definite attraction of the 186 or permanent residency pathway is highly, highly attractive. So the system has improved, but it still requires you as a business to have very good planning in place, because I think I didn't touch on it too much before around surprises with immigration was around timelines vary with each candidate, and there's administration complexities depending on the candidate's travel habits, country of origins, etc. And so, but with the right support, it works. So I guess I'd be more interested, you being in the know, so to say, Yin, from your perspective, do you feel the 482 or the new skills and demand visa, or as you say, 407 or 186, is there anything more that you think can be done to support employers?
Yes, I mean, I think there's clear aspirations and objectives to that effect, and there's definitely process in place with the Department of Home Affairs in terms of what applications, employer-sponsored visas they prioritise, and healthcare occupations is definitely one of them. I guess from an employer point of view, I want to encourage employers like Warrigal and those that operate in the aged care industry, because it's such a because the services provided are so critical, particularly those based in regional areas, to actually get involved and be one of those stakeholder consultations. Talk to your local MP, discuss the challenges regional aged care organisations face, so that an employer-sponsored visa program at a policy level and then at a regulatory level can be more practical, that can meet the needs of those businesses. And obviously the key point of that is this process around how applications may be assessed in a different manner, even though it's for the same organisation, even though it's for the same occupations as well. And yes, there are little nuances that Joni mentioned, such as, the individual applicant may have certain circumstances specific to them that result in that inconsistent processing as well. But can there be more done for the employer business where they can, have some more certainty and consistency in that process, and then allows them to plan effectively? And that's really just, business participation at the end of the day. From a service delivery point of view, Joni in particular, obviously there was a dedicated immigration provider that assisted you with that. Was there a lot of communication with you? Was there transparency around the process? Did you feel like you understood why certain events and circumstances were happening, or what were some of the specific challenges that you faced?
Look, yeah, there were definitely, challenges and complexities with individual cases. So we originally had started processing some of our visas internally. However, quickly realised the hours that needed to be put in to gather all the documentation and the speed at which we needed the registered nurses to come in. We did actually partner with an immigration company as well. And yes, they were able to navigate us through, how we needed to escalate, etc. the only thing I would say, and it's probably only because we're looking at it through our lens, is sometimes it was like it felt like everything took a long time. But I've got some notes further down as to how quick some of our RNs actually did arrive. So it felt like a long time at the time, and some of ours have taken a long time. But again, they're special circumstances. But some have come through very, very quickly.
And Derek, what are your thoughts? You've worked with so many immigration providers too, and you've sort of seen that side of it where the visa migration methodologies process. How do you think it could be improved from a service model perspective?
Well, I think what Joni mentioned, excuse me, what Joni mentioned earlier regarding if these aspects are isolated, so if they're done in isolation, so if you have the candidate doing their own visa, if you have the employer doing their visa with the migration agent, then the whole thing gets a little bit confused. And one has to think of the client in this situation. And sometimes we forget that the office of the Department of Home Affairs, Immigration Services, when they receive the lodgement, we either make it difficult for them or we make it appropriate for them. So when they receive a document that has been done by, let's say, one migration agent for both the employer and the employee, I would think logically that all the paperwork is there. That would take precedence in processing rather than it coming in dribs and drabs. Maybe I'm incorrect in that. I stand to be corrected, but logic would tell me that if it's done in an integrated approach. Now, adding to that, and I'd like to know Joni's response to this, but having the migration agent and the recruitment agent working in collaboration can even make major improvements in terms of getting that person through the process faster and with less stress. So I'll leave Joni talk about that, but that would be one of the points that I would have seen over the years, that the scar tissue has been the most challenges that I've had in doing things in isolation.
Yeah. So definitely in reflection, that candidate experience or employee experience, that real wraparound secure service, because when you really think of it, our registered nurses are uprooting a whole family unit system from one side of the country, of the world to the other. And it's a big move. And so to have that security and that wraparound and that flow of communication and that security, I think in hindsight is definitely the way I would go about it if we were to do it again, or the way I would recommend.
These are really great points. We're going to come back to that, Joni and Derek, talk about that. Just from a recruitment logistics point of view, and this is posed to you, Joni and Derek, as well, because obviously this was part of a wider project. How was the entire process managed? Like things like onboarding, interviewing with different time zones, all those types of issues that can arise.
So, well, that's one of the reasons that we chose GPR, because Derek and his team took care of all of that. So they're very well versed in they know their candidates, they know their roster, they know the time differences, they know us as a client, our preferences. We discussed when our managers would be available, when we had panels available. So we tried to be as flexible as possible as well, but GPR coordinated all of that and managed the time zone difference. So thank you very much for that, Derek. I can't take credit for that at all, Yin. But I guess with the going back to the onboarding, we have a phenomenal onboarding, learning and development and clinical education team. So they've done a lot of the coordination around that. So we've done extra onboardings dedicated just to our international RNs, and then our clinical education team has also run Nurses Education Week to back on to that, to add to the education. So that's, I guess that's internal communication and just our team's expertise at pulling those things together. So I might have gone off a little bit on track there, but did I miss anything, Yin?
No, that was fantastic as well. And Derek, what are your thoughts in terms of that process?
Well, I think the key critical feedback that we get, believe it or not, is from people that don't actually get the job in the end. And we ask them, how did you get on with the interview? And we advise them that you weren't successful this time. And with the case with Warrigal, the majority feedback, obviously they were disappointed, but they felt that they were listened to. They felt that the interview panel gave them time to speak. So that's the key point. The planning of it is important, because if you're going to be setting up time zones for people later at night, GMT, Greenwich Mean Time in the UK, therefore they've taken the time out. So it's important to give them the quality of time. So that really is key critical in that part. And then coordinating the interviews was really straightforward, because we were working in collaboration. We were giving Joni gave me clear instructions, and I said that in a nice way, on what would suit the business, because
Parameters.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, you know, the care managers and the management team have residents to look after. So we have to, it wasn't biased towards any one of the groups. The candidates and the management team were taken well into consideration. And that's what you got to do. Show some empathy for everyone, and then it works.
Mm-hmm. The recruitment team may have pulled a few extra hours around that time, but I'm sure yours did too, Derek.
Yep, absolutely. That's
all
the way
worth
it.
it.
I'm sure both of you pulled some extra times during this process as well to get the result and the outcome that was achieved. And it's fantastic to see. And Joni, now that you've gone through it, and we're assuming that you'll probably feel better equipped in the next batch of projects to do with Derek, what were your expectations going in versus the reality of it from a recruitment and immigration point of view?
Good question, Yin. So I actually expected the international recruitment process to be quite a lot more lengthy and complex, just because we were dealing with individual circumstances and people moving from one side of the world to the other. I did expect, you know, a lot more complications, but the actual recruitment process and how we moved through it, you know, once we partnered with GPR and we worked out exactly, you know, how everything was going to look, GPR made it, you know, almost perfectly seamless. You know, nothing's ever perfect in this life. But yeah, it really is. GPR puts a lot of work into the background and the support when you're going through all the recruitment. So, you know, don't get me wrong, they don't do everything. You know, as an employer, you know, you've really got to put the work in. And I thank our managers that attended the interviews and really put a lot of time and thought and effort into the selection. So on another point you mentioned about the immigration process. Now, a little bit of a newer beast and process to me, but it was more complex to navigate, and so this is where you definitely need that extra layer of support. So especially when you're working in volume. when you're working through smaller volumes, we have our internal ability, but when we were getting up to the volumes that we were looking at, bringing in support around an immigration company or lawyers was definitely something that was needed. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, Joni, I would be so interested, so will the attendees be, in hearing a success story of a registered nurse that has since joined Warrigal.
So yes, we have one, and Derek knows who I'm going to talk about. So one of our standout success stories is our registered nurse Shree. So he was one of our first nurses to arrive, because he is just the type of person that he knows what he wants, and he just goes out and gets it done and follows through. So that proved through. He was very quick in his responsiveness and his process through immigration. He was, recognised only after a few months and promoted into a strong clinical leadership position, and the impact that he's making already has been phenomenal. Yeah, so definite success story there, among many others.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I hear there's a lot more coming or starting soon or have started. So this is really going to achieve those operational objectives that Warrigal has set for themselves this year too, which is a very exciting time for the business. And Derek, do you have anything further to add around the success story that you've contributed to?
Yeah, look, again, it's not down to one person, two people, or three people. As Joni's mentioned, it meanders right through both organizations. The team interviewing, the coordination, the flexibility, moving things around, and just making it work. You have to have that. And as I said, you have to have the commitment from the top. Most organizations are scared of it because they think it's too noisy. If you put the right people and the right voices together, one can make it work. And look, there's nothing perfect, as Joni said, and we're always looking to fine tune the situation. But the last point I'll make on this is that we do not want to be in a situation where aged care facilities are not sustainable due to usage of high agency. Easier said than done, but we've proven that we can do it in regional locations. But when I say we're talking about the client, in this case, Warrigal and GPR. Not one group can do it. It has to be working in collaboration. So that's really the learnings from that I would like to share with everyone out there that's listening.
Yeah. Thanks, Derek, so much for that input. Joni, and just starting with you, and then we'll come back to you, Derek. What do you think your key advice is to other organisations in the same situation as you? What kind of advice would you give them? What is some things that you've learned that you would do differently again?
Start now. So, yeah, I'd say to anyone considering this approach to really look at it seriously. With GPR support, it has helped us achieve, our operational goals substantially. We'll never rest on our laurels on that. It's always ongoing. And before I forget, I do just want to acknowledge while I am here the phenomenal amount of support we had at CEO and board level, executive, and multiple teams that came together to work through and make all of this possible. So many people involved, and many people that puts the hard yards in. So just wanted to say that before I forget. But I guess, hindsight, looking back, it's a wonderful thing. So if I had to do it again, I definitely would, and Derek would probably spoken about this before around reflecting, and key learnings was that real focus. The focus is the candidate experience, because you're nothing without your staff, your employees are everything. So you really need to provide that right from first engagement, so they know our Warrigal values and they see that all the way through, and it becomes a long-term ongoing relationship with bringing them in. So that wraparound service between immigration, employer and recruitment partner, definitely I feel would just provide that little, what's the word I'm looking for?
Seamless.
Yeah, or just safety net, because, you know, candidates can get a bit, they've got a lot of questions, and, you know, when, you know, potentially if your partner, you've got every avenue covered, someone's able to put any concerns or questions at ease. So there's probably definitely, you know, the main sort of takeaway, and pre-planning. It's going to take a lot, and it's a lot of time and investment, and a lot of people are going to need to work together and coordinate together. And, you know, we're very lucky here at Warrigal, everyone pitched in. So yeah, it's just true. That's something that you really need to be prepared for.
Absolutely. And Derek, could you describe a bit further, because obviously you've had discussions with Joni around this wraparound service, whereby it's the business, it's the recruitment organization, it's the immigration service provider. What does that look like? How does that operate in an ideal world? And then, you know, how you would support businesses in Warrigal's position to access that?
Well, in the case with going through this with Joni and her being so transparent and from both sides, we concluded, and you always have to listen to your customers at the end of the day, and the clients extend from Joni right through to her teams and so on, and the candidates as well, because they're clients of ours as well. And Joni mentioned that it's scary for these people. And you may be dealing with the registered nurse, he or she, but there's also another client with that person as well, because they may have a partner. And even though you don't speak to that person, they're a client as well, because they're making the decision to come. So having a fully integrated service where you have the recruitment organization, you have the migration company working together, and the client, Warrigal, working together and on the one project, you've got all three vested interests helping and coordinating the big movement for a family to come to Australia, and that's the key. That's the key message in the sharing of the findings from this project. That if all three were working in together, I think we would have had better outcomes, and getting people to the starting line, to lodging, and making them feel more comfortable.
That's a really good point to make, because at the end of the day, this is a service provided to those candidates, but at the same time, it supports the business's overall objectives, which is ultimately the patient and client. So not having these organizations where where a business like Warrigal engages operate independently and in silo, it tends to be a bit more detrimental, whereby if all parties were introduced and they worked cohesively and harmoniously together, and there was clear communication, that would obviously lend to a better experience for all.
I think that's a great summary, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me just go back to the key takeaways. Sorry, I apologize here. I'm a little bit technically challenged sometimes. So as we discussed today, and again, Joni, Derek, appreciate your time sharing your insights here. It's been so invaluable, and I'm sure the attendees can agree too. It's been such a learning lesson for you, Joni, but at the same time, I'm sure then it gives you a lot of confidence in the next project as well with Derek, and hopefully, you know, a wraparound immigration recruitment service package. So as we understand, or as we know, there are prevalent workforce shortages across the healthcare industry, particularly aged care organisation in regional Australia. That doesn't seem to go away. There's no easy solution to that, but there are more cost-effective and viable solutions, such as international recruitment of qualified registered nurses. It's really important to have a strong immigration partner that can guide you through the legal requirements of the employer-sponsored visa process, because there are various subclasses. There are often certain criteria that pertain to applicants and their circumstances, and it's really important to be aware of them so the business can plan ahead and mitigate accordingly. So the key takeaway here is there needs to be a cohesive, effective management of the recruitment and immigration process that operates in tandem together and collaboratively together instead of in silo independent practices. And so therefore, we're very excited to obviously announce our partnership with Global Professional Recruitment and Derek in a streamlined global talent acquisition service. And this will allow a streamlined, cohesive recruitment and immigration solution for healthcare organisations and a range of other businesses too, particularly those facing critical workforce shortages. So what we offer is a single point of contact, being able to communicate seamlessly between those organisations, between the recruitment issues and the immigration issues, and ensuring that there is this level of service available to the candidate, which then keeps them engaged and committed to the process with the business, and ultimately allowing that to, you know, meet the objectives of the business in terms of their quality care for clients and patients as well. So if you want to learn more about it, please scan the QR code. Also, feel free to make access of our complimentary consultation as well. And I just want to remind everyone that there is a publication on Employer Guide to Sponsoring Foreign Workers. It's quite robust and it's obviously free to download. So please scan the QR code. It's available to you. So let me just check. We have some questions. So I just want to obviously remind you all. So we have a poll question. I've put it up here, you can see. Are you planning to recruit international staff for your business? So in the next 3 months, maybe more the next 12 months, probably not considering it right now. Thank you for answering the poll question. That's incredibly helpful to us. So I want to invite you to the next webinar, which is on countdown to end of financial year, which is only in 3 months' time, your legal, tax and tech insights for Australian businesses. That will be on Thursday, the 8th of May at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to register, you can click that link right there. Okay, so I'm going to go, I'm just turning my head a little bit, not too much, just to understand some of the questions available. I'm sorry, I'll just stop sharing my screen so I can go through the questions and answers. And I apologize, I'm a little bit technically challenged.
You're doing well, Yin.
Oh, thank you, Joni. I know we were talking about this earlier, going, sometimes the technology, you know, scares me a little, even though I should be well versed around it. Okay, so just going through some of the questions, and I'll just see if we have it actually. Just bear with me as I go through that. Okay, we don't seem to have any live questions just yet, maybe because we answered everything and it was quite comprehensive what we discussed. But let me just have a look here. Okay, we got a Q&A. Let's see. Okay, so one of our participants, and this may be a question for you, Joni, was accommodation an issue when bringing in the new recruits?
Yes, sorry, and I'm seem to have done something to my voice, so excuse me. I don't know what's happened. That's probably one of the points I did neglect to discuss. So accommodation, that has been a very, very interesting experience. Oh my goodness, sorry.
Would you like me to,
so-
would you like me
Maybe
to
take a
give you a
glass of-
chance,
yeah.
glass of water or something? And I can,
Oh no, I just had some, it's coming back. I don't know what I've done. So the timing of regional accommodation and the I'm going to have to hand over to you, Derek, just
Yes,
to
Yeah.
fill in for a
take it
second.
over.
so obviously in Australia and right across the regions, it's challenging. Accommodation is very challenging. One of the things that Warrigal did get was support from the government body to help integrate. But Joni had stepped in front of this well in advance with her team and planned it. And 1 week she would call me and say, God, I'm really surprised the accommodation is really good. We're doing well here. And then suddenly things might change. So flights might change, or accommodation that was available was no longer available. So we would coordinate together, slow up a flight coming without causing any distress to the candidate. So there was a bit of that. But yes, of course, in any part of Australia at the moment, accommodation is challenging. But the Warrigal team on the ground locally really worked really hard. And the people that know the locations best are the facility managers within these organizations like Warrigal. And they're the people that have the local knowledge. But are you ready to talk now? Joni, are you okay to
I
continue?
think my voice has returned. Thank
Great.
you for the rescue there, Derek.
No worries.
Great support as always. So yeah, property coordination was definitely something that hit us a little bit harder than we expected. Now we're lucky to have a dedicated property team who worked very, very hard and sourced a lot of property, but you know, that timing, because once RNs are, their visas accepted, they're here, they've booked their flights and they're arriving. So in regional, sometimes the quantity wasn't available. So, you know, there was some unexpected costs and resources that had to be allocated to short-term housing logistics. So that's definitely another one of the key learnings is pre-planning. But I think you know, you're always going to have with regional areas you know, forms of housing shortages. But yeah, it was we managed to get there in the end, and none of our RNs arrived to no roof over their head. But yeah, it was a lot of logistics.
Joni, did you want to mention the government support that you received from that organization?
Yeah, I touched on earlier, the welcome experience, which we partnered with.
Yeah.
So now the service that they provide is everything to do with settling international workers into our regional towns predominantly. So it piloted in Goulburn, I do believe, which has been fantastic for us. Ali and her team have been working with our candidates to help source their next sort of more permanent accommodation, enrolling their kids into school, settling into community longer term, whether they want to look at sports or churches or anything along those lines. I had Ali even once pick up one of our candidates because she was having trouble in the regional area getting to the train station. That's the level of commitment that program has provided us, and that relationship will be ongoing. So thank you, Ali, if you're listening.
That's fantastic. Oh, we have another question. So the question is, I'm just going to move this over here. I'm sorry. I just hope I haven't messed up the slides. Can everyone just confirm they can still see the slides, which is, okay, great. We're only doing the Q&A at this time. So the question is, as Yin mentioned earlier, the personal trip pattern may affect the immigration time. To employer, we may like someone who have been traveled to different countries, no matter for personal trip, business trip. However, to the immigration officer, will they reduce marks to those applicants with frequent travel patterns? And maybe this is something for Joni and Derek and myself too, but Derek, maybe you could start by explaining, because obviously you would be involved in screening the candidates and ensuring they're visa ready. Would you consider the previous travels or residences that they have undertaken prior to coming to Australia and how this could impact their immigration to Australia?
Well, I never declare us as immigration experts, so it's really not a topic that comes up. I do know from reading, and this is purely out of curiosity myself, that things changed after 9/11. It seems like so long ago now, but security increased dramatically. So certain countries where you might have worked might be on that list where extra checks may be required. But I never delve into that. I really look at the experience that the nurse brings and what they can offer. But that's more of an immigration question, I think, for me anyway.
Yeah, and Joni, you mentioned that as well, and I can step in after you to sort of explain it from an immigration perspective. But you mentioned that too, that there were inconsistencies in the preparation and even then the processing of some applications, depending on where the candidate had previously travelled to.
Yeah, and I'm only where I'm coming from that angle is the in order to have the visa, you'll know more than me, and there's probity or police checks, criminal history checks run in each country they've been to, and I think it's for the last 10 years. So if they've travelled a number of times, there's quite a number of checks to get through, and some countries were quicker than others to process those checks. So that was the sort of angle that I was coming from. Officially, I don't know what impact it has. I'd probably throw that back to you, Yin, for more of a professional input.
And absolutely, I agree from the point of view of having assisted a lot of clients in that, where there's significant travel history, significant residence in other countries, and where it can be quite onerous to obtain those police checks and how that can delay the process. There's obviously, depending on the employer's sponsor, if they were able to achieve accreditation status, there would be some exemptions to that available. And obviously we discussed that with the specific business to see if that's something that they're eligible for, because then it would alleviate the requirement for those candidates to have to provide a lot of those penal clearances as well. But yes, that's a really good question, a good point to make.
Yeah, and Warrigal was able to utilise some of those exemptions.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see if there's any more questions, because we've still got a few more minutes left. And while we're waiting for some of the Q&As to come through, I might get Derek. Is Derek still there?
Yep.
Oh, Derek, I didn't see you for a moment there. I thought, Derek, maybe you could share more about our streamlined immigration recruitment services, because I realized I talked a bit about it, but didn't give you the opportunity to express your thoughts around it as well, and why you think it would be beneficial for a lot of clients.
Yeah, well, I think Joni covered it really well, because we're dealing with the people that are coming from another country, and so there's always an element of cautiousness and anxiety. So if we can reduce that anxiety, better for everyone. Also, there's a lot of work for the internal teams to complete, in this case, Warrigal. So if we can reduce that work and get a better outcome, that's positive as well. So if we broach it at both sides, we need the resources of having the recruitment business aligned with the immigration service, so that we're both working together in collaboration. For example, I know in LegalVision that once you have a client, let's say a registered nurse, you do a face-to-face meeting with them before you start the process. So you're building a relationship straight away with the person. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that people interaction, that it's not just numbers or moving dots. It's about moving the lives of people. So, you know, so it's integrating that people-centered approach through the three conduits, if I may use that word, is the most appropriate way to get the best results.
Thanks, Derek. I appreciate that vote of confidence too, and also sharing that. So to wrap up, thank you very much, Joni and Derek, for joining us today. It's been an absolutely exceptional webinar, and I hope the attendees enjoyed all the information that has been provided. Just a reminder that you can claim a complimentary consultation that can be in relation to the Immigration Recruitment Service or anything else in relation to LegalVision and or our practice areas. So please complete the survey, indicate that you'd like to receive a complimentary consultation, and don't forget this webinar is recorded as well. Again, thank you, Joni and Derek. It's been such a pleasure to have you, and thank you everyone for attending. We'll see you at the next webinar. Goodbye for now.
Thank you again.
Thank you.